Ready to dive into some deep waters.
I think deep waters is an understatement.
True. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Adamus123.pdf. Listeners have sent us some really interesting excerpts.
Yeah, and it's clear this document doesn't hold back.
Absolutely not. It jumps right into this wild concept of new energy. But it's not just your typical, good vibes kind of energy, is it?
No, not at all. It's more like this force of nature almost that even those ascended masters are still trying to understand.
Seriously, even those guys.
Yeah, even them. The text even literally says, quite frankly, not I, Adamus, not Tobias, not any of the ascended masters truly understand how it works.
Wow, so we're talking next level stuff here.
Next level is putting it mildly. And get this, tied to this whole new energy thing is the idea that there's no such thing as a wrong decision anymore.
Wait, what? How is that even possible? That kind of goes against, well, everything, doesn't it?
It definitely challenges our usual thinking. It straight up says you cannot make a wrong decision. But I don't think it's saying to just throw all caution to the wind,
Right, it's not about being reckless.
Yeah, it's more about trusting that every experience, even the ones we might call mistakes, they all have a purpose.
So less about labeling things as right or wrong and more about trusting there's a bigger plan happening?
Exactly. And this whole trust thing, it comes up again with this idea of honor actually being more powerful than love.
Now, that's a bold statement. I mean, we usually think of love as the top dog, right? So how does the text explain that?
It talks about honor as this deep, deep respect for everyone, even those you might not always agree with.
Okay, so it's about seeing the good in everyone.
Yeah, like that spark of something bigger within everyone.
Right.
And when we approach everything with that kind of reverence, that's when we can really tap into this new energy.
Interesting. So not about putting anyone on a pedestal, but recognizing that everyone's got something special.
Exactly. And speaking of tapping in, that's where this Pakoa comes in.
Pakoa, right. Every time I hear that, I'm like, what even is that?
It's described as this personal energy being, almost like a guide, to help us navigate and actually work with this new energy.
Like having an energy coach in your back pocket.
Exactly. And the text is super clear. This isn't something you should do just once in a while. Work with it daily. It's amazing.
So it's not just a one-time thing. It's like an everyday practice.
Right. And it's supposed to help us understand our own energy, even connect with other dimensions, which is wild.
So how do you even start connecting with a Pakoa? Is there a sign-up sheet somewhere?
Well, that's the exciting part. The text just says to be open to the unexpected. It seems like this new energy stuff is less about strict rules and more about going with the flow, trusting your intuition. The source material specifically says to expect the unexpected.
Buckle up.
Exactly. And this actually leads us to another interesting point. The text kind of downplays those traditional spiritual practices that are all about discipline,
Yeah.
Calls them boring even.
Wait, boring? Are we talking about ditching meditation and all that?
Not necessarily ditching it, but maybe changing how we approach it. It's like this new energy needs a different kind of connection, something more about our own inner wisdom.
So less rigid routine, more like, I don't know, an inner dance or something.
That's a great way to put it. And this whole inner exploration thing really takes center stage when the text starts talking about the body of consciousness.
Okay, here we go. Getting deep.
Right. So it's saying that our consciousness is not just stuck in our physical bodies. It can go way beyond that, into other dimensions even.
Whoa, hold on. Are you saying, I could experience what it's like to be a dolphin swimming in the ocean?
That's the idea. It really makes you question what we think we know about consciousness. And all this ties into an even bigger idea, which is you are God.
Now, that's a statement, but I have a feeling it's not the typical God we usually think of, right?
Exactly. It's not about some external deity. It's about recognizing that divine spark within each of us, like owning our own power.
Owning our power. I like the sound of that.
It's about recognizing that you, me, we're all capable of incredible things.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not just these separate little beings, but part of something so much bigger.
Like we're all connected somehow.
Exactly. And to really tap into that connection, the text says we need to go beyond the mind.
Beyond the mind? What does that even mean?
Well, it's like our minds, with all their thinking and analyzing, they can actually be a block to really experiencing that connection.
So all that overthinking isn't helping?
Not always. Sometimes we need to quiet the mind and tap into something deeper, something more intuitive.
I can see that.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The text also says that time is an illusion.
Wait, time is an illusion? Now my mind is really spinning. How can time be an illusion?
No. It's a wild concept, right? We experience time as this straight line, past, present, future. But what if that's just one way of looking at it?
Okay, so there are other ways of looking at time.
The text seems to suggest that. It's encouraging us to step outside those limitations and experience the freedom of being beyond time.
It's like instead of being stuck on a schedule, we can just be present in this moment.
Exactly. And when we access that expanded awareness, the text says we become messengers.
Messengers of what exactly?
Messengers of awakening. It's calling on everyone who resonates with these ideas, the Shaumbra, as the text calls them, to share this message with the world.
So it's not about preaching or anything like that, right?
No, not at all. It's more about embodying these principles in our own lives, letting our actions speak louder than words.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And this call to action, it's even more important when you consider the state of the world right now. All the chaos and change happening.
It's true. The world feels kind of crazy right now.
It does, doesn't it? But the text doesn't see this chaos as a bad thing. It's more like a necessary stage of transformation.
So instead of fearing the chaos, we should embrace it.
The text seems to suggest that. It's like old structures need to break down to make way for something new. And for us to really embrace this change, we need to release the identity.
Release the identity. Okay, now I'm really lost.
It's about letting go of those old stories we tell ourselves, the limitations we put on ourselves, and stepping into a bigger, more expansive version of ourselves.
So letting go of who we think we are and embracing who we can become.
Exactly. And to help us do that, the text gives us these two really powerful concepts, Amyo and Kihak.
Okay, break those down for me. What are Amyo and Kihak?
Well, Amyo is like this deep self-acceptance, this knowing within that you are divine.
So not being arrogant, but recognizing that spark of something greater within.
Exactly. And Kihak, that's about aligning your actions with that knowing, understanding your true desires.
So living your truth, not just knowing it in your head.
Yes. And all of this ties back to the idea of stepping outside the tube.
The tubes.
Yeah, the tube. It's this analogy the text uses to show how we limit ourselves with beliefs, with time, with our perception of reality.
So we're stuck in this limited view of the world.
In a way, yes. But the text is urging us to break free from that limited view, to expand our awareness, to realize that there's so much more out there than we can even imagine.
It's like we've been looking at the world through a tiny window, and now we're being asked to open the whole door.
Exactly. And when we do that, when we step outside that tube, we open ourselves up to a whole new world of possibilities.
And speaking of new possibilities, the text also delves into some pretty major global shifts, even talking about the potential collapse of the world financial system.
It does. And it's not presented as a doomsday prediction, but more like a natural progression, a shedding of the old to make way for the new.
So like a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly.
A very messy, chaotic, but ultimately beautiful transformation. And during this time of change, the text suggests that we need to become energy pushers, not energy holders.
Energy pushers. Okay, I'm not sure I follow. What's the difference?
Holding energy is about clinging to the past, resisting change. Pushing energy is about going with the flow, supporting the natural evolution of things.
So it's about trusting the process, even when things feel uncertain.
Exactly. And to navigate this uncertainty, we need to develop our discernment, to trust our intuition, that inner voice that guides us towards what's true for us.
Because not everything we hear or read is going to resonate.
Exactly. It's about listening to that quiet inner knowing that helps us navigate this world of information overload. And when we trust that inner voice, when we align with our truth, that's when we start to experience true abundance.
And not just abundance in a material sense, right?
Right. It's about a richness of experience, a life filled with joy and purpose.
Because when we're living authentically, when we're aligned with our true selves, everything else just falls into place.
Exactly. But sometimes we have to face our fears to step into that authenticity.
Because fear can hold us back from so much.
Absolutely. It can keep us small and prevent us from living the lives we're meant to live.
So how do we overcome that fear? How do we break free from those limitations?
The text reminds us that we're not alone in this journey. Remember those magical beings we talked about earlier? They're here to help.
The ones helping to create the new earth.
Yes. They're here to support us, guide us, and remind us of our own power. And part of stepping into that power involves embracing what the text calls new think.
New think, another new term. What's that all about?
It's about shifting our perspective, going beyond the limitations of our logical minds, and tapping into a deeper knowing.
So less thinking, more feeling. More intuition.
Exactly. It's about accessing a different kind of wisdom, one that resides beyond the intellect. And when we do that, when we open ourselves up to new think, we open ourselves up to infinite possibilities.
It's like we're being handed a brand new map, but this map leads to a whole new dimension of reality.
And the best part is, this map is still being drawn as we explore.
I like that. It's not static. We're helping to create it as we go. And speaking of creating, one of the most mind-blowing concepts in all of this is the idea of experiencing multiple potentials at the same time.
Right. It really throws that linear way of thinking out the window.
It means our lives aren't just one straight line. It's like we have all these different paths we could take, all happening at once.
The text suggests that we're actually capable of experiencing multiple realities simultaneously, each one branching off into different possibilities.
So every decision we make, every thought we have, could be creating a whole new reality.
It makes you wonder, what potentials are we currently tuned into? And what would happen if we consciously chose to shift our focus? Could we experience a different potential?
Now that is a powerful question. And it really drives home the point that we're not just along for the ride, we're actually creating the ride as we go.
We're not just passive observers. We're active creators of our own reality.
And as we become more aware of that power, we start to see the magic woven into everything.
The text talks about magic not as something supernatural, but as a natural expression of consciousness.
So it's not about waving a wand or casting spells. It's about realizing the power of our own minds to shape reality.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have this innate ability to create magic in our lives through our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions.
And we can amplify that power by connecting with those magical beings we discussed, the ones who are here to support this whole shift in consciousness.
They're not just watching from the sidelines. They're actively working with us, guiding us, and helping us to create a more beautiful and awakened world.
It's like we're all in this cosmic dance together, swirling and twirling, co-creating something truly amazing.
And the more we surrender to that dance, the more we trust our intuition, the more we open ourselves up to the magic of it all.
The text also talks a lot about letting go of the need for a purpose, which is a pretty radical concept these days.
It is, isn't it? In a world that's constantly telling us to do more, be more, achieve more, the idea of simply being is almost revolutionary.
It's like we're being given permission to just relax, to enjoy the journey, to trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should.
And from that place of trust and surrender, that's when our authentic voice can really emerge.
Because when we're no longer trying to force things, to fit in, to meet other people's expectations, that's when our true selves can shine through.
Exactly.
Oh.
And the text encourages us to not only find our voice, but to share it with the world, to contribute to the collective awakening of consciousness.
Because everyone has something unique to offer, a perspective, a talent, a story that can inspire and uplift others.
And when we share our gifts authentically from a place of love and compassion, we not only help ourselves, but we also help to create a more beautiful and harmonious world for everyone.
This deep dive has been quite the journey, and I'm sure our listeners are buzzing with all these new ideas and concepts.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the mind-bending idea of new energy to the importance of connecting with our pukawas, from the illusion of time to the transformative power of Amyo and Kihak.
But remember, this is just the beginning. The real work starts now as you take these concepts and integrate them into your own life, into your own unique journey of awakening.
And don't be afraid to experiment, to play, to explore what resonates with you. Trust your intuition, follow your heart, and see where this journey takes you.
Because the most important thing is to find what works for you, what lights you up, what helps you to step into your own power and create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
And remember, you are not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, supporting each other, inspiring each other, and co-creating a more beautiful and awakened world.
So go out there, embrace the unknown, and create something extraordinary.
The universe is waiting for you. All right, so you guys know we love to get our hands dirty with some wild spiritual deep dives.
We do.
And this one takes the cake.
Yeah, this one's out there.
You sent us a mountain of material about this Adamus character.
I've never seen so many pronouncements, teachings, channeling sessions.
Me either. And buckle up, because we're going deep into his whole deal.
Yeah, his whole thing about consciousness, enlightenment, what it actually means to be human.
All that juicy stuff. And believe me, Adamus does not hold back.
Not even a little bit.
Okay, so first things first. Who is this Adamus guy? He claims to be some aspect of Saint Germain.
The Count of Saint Germain.
The one and only. But wait, it gets weirder.
Oh, there's more.
So much more.
Yeah.
He's dropping into funerals for kicks, talking about councils of ascended masters. Like a spiritual soap opera up in here.
You gotta wonder, though, with all this talk about ascended masters, are we just buying into another form of spiritual authority?
Ooh, that's good. You think he's legit? Or some kind of cosmic prankster?
And what does that say about us, the seekers who are drawn to these teachings?
Okay, that's a deep dive in itself.
Right.
But let's talk about his take on enlightenment, because forget peaceful monks and giving up your possessions. Adamus says it's about integrating the physical and the spiritual, not ditching the physical world.
He's all about embodied enlightenment.
Embodied enlightenment. I'm not sure I follow.
So it's like this, your soul fully inhabits your physical body. You're not trying to escape this world, but experiencing it with this new awareness.
Okay, so you're not trying to become some enlightened being floating in the void. You're bringing that enlightenment down to earth.
Exactly. It's about being present, grounded in your body and in this reality.
And get this, he says things like bitchiness, irritability, agitation. Those are actually good signs.
Right. It's like you're shedding old patterns, old limitations. You're not repressing, you're processing.
Okay, but seriously, bitchiness as a sign of spiritual progress. That's a new one for me.
It makes you think, though, right? What if those less than pleasant emotions are actually a sign of growth?
Okay, I'm willing to entertain the possibility. So we're clear. What does this whole embodied enlightenment thing actually look like in practice?
Think of it like this. It's like seeing the world in HD for the first time. Your senses are heightened, your awareness is expanded, you're experiencing everything with a depth and richness you never thought possible.
So it's not just about thinking your way to enlightenment. It's about feeling it, experiencing it with your whole being.
Exactly. And that brings us to another one of his biggies, the I am.
Right. He talks a lot about claiming your I am right now in this moment.
It's that core divine self that's always been there beneath the layers of conditioning and programming.
He's big on not waiting for some future event to finally become enlightened. He says, you are already that I am.
Which is interesting because it ties into a lot of different spiritual traditions.
So?
Well, think about it. Strip away the dogma, the rituals, all the bells and whistles. What are you left with?
Just being.
Exactly, just being. So what does it mean to simply exist as an enlightened being rather than striving to become one? That's the question he's posing.
Okay, my brain is doing backflips, trying to wrap my head around all this. So Adamus is over here turning our ideas of enlightenment upside down, and then he throws in this whole crystal thing.
Oh yeah, the white crystal.
Literal caves filled with crystals, he says, and their energy is becoming available to us now.
He even names specific caverns like he's got a cosmic travel guide.
And naturally, he links this to Egypt, of course.
There's always a connection to ancient wisdom.
Right. And then he throws in something called the Saint Germain World Trust.
It's like he's weaving this tapestry of ancient mysteries and future possibilities.
I'm not even going to lie, that whole crystal energy Egypt thing had me scratching my head a bit.
Well, what's fascinating is how it ties into his whole thing about abundance.
Abundance. Okay, know what
that's
they're talking.
Right. So he seems to see this untapped potential, especially in the people who are drawn to his teachings, who he calls Shaumbra.
Shaumbra, there's another one for you.
Ah.
Is that some kind of secret society?
Not exactly. He uses it to describe people who are on this path of awakening, recognizing their own divinity.
So like the enlightened ones?
You could say that. He's basically saying that Shaumbra are here to usher in a new era of consciousness, and with that comes unlimited abundance.
Okay, but what does that actually look like in real life?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? He tells this story about a woman who could have manifested a massive empire but chose not to. At least not yet.
Wait, so he's saying we should all be aspiring to build empires.
I don't think it's about the empire itself, but what it represents. It's like he's asking, what if traditional success is actually a limitation? What if Shaumbra, with their unique connection to these energies, are meant for something far grander?
Okay, so expanding our definition of success beyond just money and power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe even questioning those definitions in the first place.
It's like he's challenging us to rethink our entire approach to life.
He's definitely not afraid to push some buttons, that's for sure.
And speaking of pushing buttons, he doesn't stop at crystals and empires. He goes straight for some pretty big theological institutions.
No boy, here we go.
He starts talking about the Jesus game, as he calls it.
Implying that maybe Jesus wasn't all he was cracked up to be.
Well, what, he's saying Jesus wasn't the Son of God?
Well, not in those exact words. It's more like he's suggesting Jesus was maybe a bit more human, a bit more grounded than we've been led to believe.
Okay, now that is some next-level deep dive material.
Right. He really goes there.
I have to admit, a part of me is a little uncomfortable with that. You know? It feels almost disrespectful.
I get it. But then another part of you is probably thinking, well, why not question it?
True, it's not like I'm abandoning my faith by considering different perspectives.
Exactly. He's not necessarily trying to tear down your beliefs, but encouraging you to examine them, to ask yourself, why do I believe this? Is it based on faith, on tradition, on something someone told me? Or is it something I've truly explored and made my own?
Okay, I see where he's going with that. It's like he's saying, don't just blindly accept what you've been told. Question everything.
And that includes our ideas about reality itself.
Oh, this is about to get really interesting.
Oh yeah, buckle up, because Adamus has a lot to say about the nature of reality, and let me tell you, it's mind-blowing stuff. So we were talking about reality.
Right, and how Adamus has some pretty wild ideas about it.
Wild might be an understatement. He's basically saying that our thoughts might not actually be our own.
Hold on, what you mean, like we're being controlled by aliens or something?
Not exactly. It's more like we're picking up on external frequencies, almost like radio waves, and not all of them are tuned to the right station.
Okay, that's a little freaky, but also kind of believable. I mean, how many times did you caught yourself thinking something and you're like, where did that come from?
Exactly. And it's not just random thoughts. He suggests that past experiences can influence our thoughts in the present. It's like our minds are more porous than we realize.
Okay, my head is spinning. So if our thoughts aren't even always our own, what does that mean for free will, for making choices?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Adamus doesn't shy away from it. He says it's about becoming aware of those thoughts. Learning to discern which ones are actually ours and then consciously choosing which ones to act on.
So we have to become like thought bouncers, deciding who gets in and who gets thrown out.
Exactly. He's all about taking responsibility for our creations, our experiences, everything. Stop blaming external circumstances or other people and step into our power as conscious creators.
He makes it sound so simple, but I imagine it's anything but easy, right? To go from feeling like we're at the mercy of our thoughts to actually being in control of them.
It's a process for sure, and he acknowledges that it can be scary. This stepping into the unknown, embracing the fullness of who we are, it brings up a lot of fear and uncertainty.
So how do we do it? How do we become those conscious creators he's talking about?
Well, he talks a lot about the power of energy, particularly these new energies that he says are becoming available to humanity.
Oh boy, here we go with the energies again.
He even mentions 21 specific caverns filled with crystals that are radiating these new energies.
Of course there are crystals involved. But what are these energies supposed to do? Like, what's the practical application for us?
He suggests that these energies can help us to manifest our desires, heal our bodies, and ultimately create a new reality for ourselves.
Okay, so we're talking next level manifestation here. Not just wishing for a parking space, but manifesting a whole new experience of reality.
It's like we're getting an upgrade from dial-up to high-speed internet in terms of the energy we have access to. And he believes that this access to higher frequencies is what's going to allow us to make this evolutionary leap in consciousness.
That's a pretty bold claim, but I'm intrigued. So how do we tap into these new energies? Do we need to book a flight to Egypt and go spelunking for crystals?
He talks about a lot of different techniques: breathing exercises, visualizations, affirmations, even just spending time in nature. He emphasizes the importance of grounding our energy, connecting with the earth, and being fully present in our bodies.
So it's not just about thinking our way into a new reality. It's about embodying it, feeling it in every cell.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. He talks about how our bodies are undergoing deep changes as we're being exposed to these new energies. He says we might experience physical and emotional symptoms as a result.
So like growing pains on a spiritual level.
Precisely. And he emphasizes the importance of being gentle with ourselves during this process, seeking support when we need it, and remembering that there are thousands of others going through similar experiences.
There's that Shaumbra thing again, that sense of community. It's like he's creating this whole movement of people who are committed to supporting each other on this wild ride of awakening.
And he's right there with them every step of the way, offering guidance, encouragement, and even a healthy dose of humor.
That's right. He's not all doom and gloom and crystals. He seems to have a pretty wicked sense of humor. Like that bit with the microphone where he's talking to someone about their experience and makes them repeat themselves until they get more and more passionate. I have to admit, I laughed out loud at that one.
There's a playfulness to his teaching style that can be disarming, but I also think it's a way of encouraging people to be present and engaged rather than just passively absorbing information.
It's like he's saying, wake up, this is important stuff. And it's not just about enlightenment and crystals, is it? He talks about relationships, sex death, all the big stuff.
He does, and he's not afraid to challenge traditional views on any of it. For example, he questions the need for romantic relationships, suggesting that they can sometimes be a distraction from our own self-discovery.
Whoa, now he's really shaking things up. So what's the takeaway there? Are we all meant to become enlightened hermits?
Not necessarily. It's more like he's encouraging us to examine our beliefs about relationships and what truly brings us fulfillment. Are we seeking a partner to complete us, or are we seeking to share our wholeness with another whole being?
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's about taking responsibility for our own happiness and not expecting someone else to provide it for us.
Exactly. And that sense of self-responsibility extends to every area of life. He talks about the importance of taking ownership of our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, and our creations.
It's like he's saying, you are the artist of your own life.
Yeah.
Now stop complaining about the canvas and start painting your masterpiece.
And you know what I appreciate about him? He doesn't just drop these truth bombs and peace out.
Right. He gives you the tools to work with it all.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
all those techniques for handling your emotions, releasing that yucky energy.
And let's not forget cultivating joy and abundance.
Oh, yeah, he's big on that. It's like he's saying, hey, life's going to throw you curveballs, but you don't have to get knocked down.
He's all about that empowerment. Becoming conscious creators, designing a life you actually enjoy.
And he doesn't give you some cookie-cutter answers either.
Oh no, he makes you work for it.
Right. Question your beliefs, challenge the norm.
Like that George Bernard Shaw quote, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." In Adamus, he is our unreasonable man.
Yeah.
Totally here for it.
He's shaking things up, ruffling feathers, making you think differently.
And he's hilarious while he's doing it, which you don't always get with spiritual teachers.
Truth. It's refreshing.
Like, he's got this mischievous energy like he knows something we don't.
Like he's in on a cosmic joke.
Yes.
Yes.
And that humor, it makes everything more approachable, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes spirituality gets so serious.
So heavy.
Exactly. And Adamus is like, lightened up, people. We're talking enlightenment here, not a tax audit.
See? He gets it. But, you know, one of the things I appreciate most about him, his honesty.
Oh, yeah. He's not sugarcoating anything.
Nope. He's upfront about the struggles, the messy parts of this whole spiritual journey.
It's real.
But he balances it out with this incredible hope, this encouragement.
It's like he sees how hard we are on ourselves, all the doubt.
Yeah.
And he's just reminding us how awesome we are.
How powerful.
Divine. He sees our potential even when we don't.
And he challenges us to own it, to step into that mastery.
To become the amazing creators we were always meant to be.
You know, for someone who talks so much about energy and frequencies, Adamus himself is like this force of nature.
He really is. There's an energy to his teachings of vibration.
It's palpable.
You can feel it. So after spending all this time with Adamus, what's your biggest takeaway?
Honestly, it's the reminder that we're not alone in this. That there are others out there on this crazy path of awakening,
Asking the big questions.
facing the same doubts and fears.
But ultimately creating a new reality for themselves and the world.
It all comes back to that Shaumbra thing, that feeling of connection, of belonging.
We're all in this together.
And it's not just about feeling less alone, it's about realizing we're all connected, part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
And that together we can create a world that's kinder, more loving, more in alignment with who we truly are.
Adamus might be the messenger, but it's a message that's been whispered throughout history.
From mystics and teachers, artists and poets.
It's the message of awakening, of remembering who we are and creating a world that reflects that truth.
And it's a message the world needs now more than ever.
Absolutely. And Adamus is out there, microphone in hand, spreading that message with passion, with humor, and with a whole lot of heart.
So to wrap this up for everyone listening, what if he's right? What if those thoughts, those desires, are whispers from a part of yourself you forgot existed? What if enlightenment isn't about arriving somewhere, but about returning home?
He's definitely given us a lot to think about.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Such a fascinating conversation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Okay, so we are ready to dive into some seriously out there stuff because you've really outdone yourself with this reading list this time. We're talking consciousness, creation, what it even means to be human.
Definitely not your average Tuesday afternoon, that's for sure.
No kidding. And all coming from this, well, this guy who claims to be Adamus Saint Germain. I mean, where do we even begin with that?
Well, I think the best place to start is with the ideas themselves, because we're really diving into this concept of subjective reality, right? Like, what if, and this is a big what if, but what if our beliefs don't just change how we see the world, but actually, shape the world itself?
I'll be honest, when I first saw this material, I thought we were doing a deep dive on like a sci-fi novel or
Yeah, it
something.
does have that kind of feel to it, yeah.
It really does. But then I gotta say, I got into it. Like, even if you take it all with a grain of salt, the ideas, just the ideas alone, they're incredibly fascinating.
They really make you think, and that's what's so interesting about this deep dive. Whether you buy into Adamus's claims or not, you're guaranteed to walk away with a new perspective.
100%. It's like that quote, the best fiction asks the most important questions.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what we're actually working with here. We've got all these, it seems like mostly transcripts, right? Of talks that Adamus gave to this group he calls Shaumbra.
Yes, and it's very conversational. He's talking directly to the audience, answering questions. There's even some back and forth banter going on.
Sounds likely.
Oh, yeah, and there are little side comments from a woman named Linda who seems to be a close associate of his. So you're really getting a glimpse into their world.
See, and he doesn't waste any time making some pretty bold claims. Like right out of the gate,
Hmm.
there's this part where he's joking about iPhones, right? iPhones being brought back in time to like 1915.
I remember that.
And he's implying that he had something to do with Apple's success.
Of course he is.
I was like, whoa, okay, we're starting at 10 here.
He definitely sets the stage for a wild ride. And it all seems to revolve around this idea of consciousness as, like, the most fundamental force in the universe.
Okay, so not just in a spiritual way, like we hear about a lot. He's saying this is like the literal source of creation.
Exactly. And he contrasts that with what he calls the me, which is basically our limited human ego.
That thing we all have.
Right, the one that's always getting in the way. And he says most of us, we're so busy identifying with this small self that we miss out on the power of what he calls I am consciousness.
Okay, so I am versus me. I'm already feeling like I need a whiteboard to keep track of all this.
Me too. But essentially, he sees I am as this boundless creative force that's within each of us, this potential that can even, get this, transcend the laws of physics as we know them.
Okay, hold on. Things just got real. So we're not just talking about like positive thinking here. We're talking about bending reality itself.
That's what he's implying. And this is where it gets really interesting, because he ties this whole concept to how we experience things like time and space, even gravity.
Okay, so you lost me at gravity.
It's a lot.
Because when I think consciousness, I'm thinking thoughts, feelings, beliefs, not, something that can make an apple fall from a tree.
It is a bit of a leap, I'll admit. But according to Adamus, we're not actually trapped in time and space the way we think we are. He's saying it flows through us, and that our consciousness actually plays a role in shaping how that flow happens. It's like, instead of being stuck in time, time is flowing through us, and our perception, our consciousness is influencing that flow.
Okay, I think I kind of get that. Maybe. But gravity, help me out here.
So he even suggests that gravity, instead of being the separate force, right, might actually be a consequence of how our consciousness is perceiving time and space. It's like, it's a really wild concept to try to wrap your head around.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then, just when I thought I was starting to get a handle on things, he throws in dark holes and something called Bond.
Yeah, that's where his explanations get, well, very abstract, even for Adamus. He's describing dark holes as this highly condensed plasma that comes from this mysterious bond. And apparently this bond is connected to time-space, but also exists in all these other realms. It's like he's describing a color you've never seen before.
That's a great analogy. Because it's like, how do you even begin to visualize that?
Exactly. It's beyond our current understanding.
It really is.
Yeah.
So how does any of this relate to, like, us as humans just living our lives? I mean, it's all very fascinating. But what's the takeaway for someone listening who's maybe never even considered the idea that, our thoughts can create reality?
That's the key question, right? And if we try to bring some of this back down to earth, I think what Adamus is suggesting is that we have way more power to shape our reality than we realize. He's pointing to a potential within us that goes beyond our limited everyday thinking.
So it's not just about understanding these concepts intellectually, but actually, like, experiencing them.
Exactly. And that's where his idea of the master sense comes in.
Okay, so my mind is officially blown. We're talking about sensing beyond our five senses, using I am consciousness to actually shape reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure. And I think that's where Adamus' sense of humor really comes in.
Because he seems to have one, right?
Well, yeah, he's actually quite playful throughout these talks. There's this one part where he calls someone in the audience a wench because she's slow bringing him coffee.
Oh, no, he did not.
He totally did. It's pretty funny.
This guy, I tell you. But again, even if we don't take every single word he says literally, the ideas themselves are just, I don't know, they're really intriguing. Like this master sense he keeps talking about. Is he saying that everyone has the potential to develop this? Or is this like some rare superhuman ability?
He definitely seems to believe it's accessible to everyone. It's more about a shift in perception, a shift in awareness, rather than some kind of special power you're born with. And it all ties into this whole thing he talks about with humanity being on the verge of this massive shift.
Yeah, he keeps hinting at that.
He even suggests there might be new physics emerging that will totally challenge everything we thought we knew.
Okay, new physics. Need an example. What would that even look like?
He's a bit vague on the specifics, I'll give you that, but he uses this analogy of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly.
Okay, I get that. Transformation.
Right. But he's talking about a complete metamorphosis, not just a gradual change. And what's really interesting is he doesn't seem to know if this is going to lead to evolution or chaos.
Oh, great. So no pressure humanity.
Exactly. But he keeps emphasizing the importance of truly living, or as he calls it, leaving, which seems to have multiple meanings depending on the context.
So either we step up and embrace this change, whatever it looks like, or we, I don't know, get left behind somehow.
That's one interpretation. It's not really framed as a punishment, but more like a natural consequence of not being aligned with the shift that's happening.
And it's interesting because he ties this all into new physics, this transformation of humanity to the rapid technological development that we're seeing.
It's all connected for him.
Yeah, he's saying it's not just human ingenuity driving this, but rising consciousness.
Exactly. He sees this future where technology actually serves conscious life, not the other way around. It's almost like he's saying our collective awakening is what's fueling these technological leaps and bounds.
Okay, now that is a mind-blowing concept right there. Because usually we're worried about technology controlling us, but what if it's actually a reflection of our expanding consciousness?
Right. It makes you think.
It really does. So I have to ask, what on earth does Adamus actually say about living a more conscious life? Because he keeps mentioning this idea of moving past duality. And it's not just about integrating it, it's almost like transcending that whole idea of good versus bad, right and wrong.
It's a tricky concept, but it seems like he's pointing towards this state of being where we're not so caught up in that constant either thinking. So instead of just trying to integrate the good and the bad, he's talking about experiencing a reality where those polarities, they exist together in this completely new way.
So it's not about denying the existence of darkness, but almost like we're seeing it from a completely different perspective.
It's like our whole understanding of reality is due for an upgrade. He even talks about how these ingrained concepts like evil and Satan might actually be illusions. He says, imagine if humanity had never even been told about these things. Our consciousness would be radically different.
That's a pretty big what if right there.
It is.
And it kind of ties into what you were saying about moving beyond duality, right? It's like our beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves, actually have a very real impact on our experience.
100%. And he even gets into some practical advice about how to navigate this shift. Like, he talks about how we often try to mediate between different parts of ourselves, you know, like the human and the soul.
We've all been there.
Right. But instead of trying to control those parts or fix them, he suggests we simply observe them without judgment. And he claims this allows for more natural integration to happen.
You know, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's like we're so used to trying to force things into these neat little boxes, but maybe true integration happens when we just allow all parts of ourselves to be present. Just be.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting aspect of Adamus's teachings, his emphasis on sensuality.
Okay, so we're not just talking about, like, indulging in pleasure.
Yeah.
Right, because he uses that term transsensuality, which is a whole other level.
Right. It's not just about physical pleasure. He's talking about this heightened experience, this transsensuality that goes beyond our current comprehension. He says it's accessed by connecting to our creative core, that source of pure creation within us.
So not just indulging our senses, but almost like our senses become a portal to something deeper. I'm trying to imagine what that would feel like, but it's like trying to describe the taste of chocolate to someone who's never had it.
Exactly. It's pushing the boundaries of our current understanding.
It really is. And this is where his views on the light body get really interesting.
Because he doesn't really buy into that whole idea, does he?
No, not really. Instead, he talks about humans developing a true energy body. So what's the difference?
He claims that the typical light body concept is flawed because it's parasitic, meaning it relies on external sources for energy.
Maybe it's something else to feed on.
Right, but he says we're actually developing a true energy body that's self-sufficient, not dependent on anything outside of ourselves.
Okay, it's like an upgrade.
Exactly. And he's very clear that this transformation can get pretty intense physically. I mean, if our energy body is basically being completely remade, that's got to be rough on the physical form.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like a major renovation project happening inside your body.
Right. He talks about the discomfort, even pain that can come with this process, comparing it to wearing braces.
Ouch. Necessary, but ouch.
Right. Not fun in the moment, but it leads to a more beautiful result in the long run, so to speak.
So a necessary part of the upgrade. Okay. And then he also talks about these energy scents that we emit. Is that part of this new energy body he's talking about?
It seems to be connected. He's claiming that these energy scents go beyond our normal sense of smell, and that as our awareness expands, we can actually start to perceive them.
Okay, I kind of get that. Like if you ever met someone and just instantly felt good being around them, like there's just a good vibe. Maybe that's the energy scent he's talking about.
That's an interesting way to think about it, and it ties back into this core message of trusting your own inner knowing.
Your gut feeling.
Exactly, because he talks a lot about doubt being a major obstacle on this path, and understandably so, right?
Yeah, because how do we even begin to wrap our heads around all of this, let alone experience it without a healthy dose of skepticism?
It's natural to question, but he keeps emphasizing that embodied enlightenment, it's not about achieving something, it's about allowing.
It's a process.
Right. And you can't force it or think your way into it. It's more about letting go of that struggle and trusting the process, even when it feels messy or uncertain. And he keeps reassuring his listeners that they can't do it wrong, which I find really comforting.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I can relax a little bit.
Exactly. And speaking of guidance, he mentions this book, Memoirs of a Master. He says it really reflects the journey of the Shaumbra.
Okay, so for people who are just tuning in, what do we know about this book?
It seems to be like a core text for his followers, and it describes that transition from identifying with the struggling student to embracing that wise master within. So it's almost like a guidebook for navigating this process of embodying our higher selves.
Like a roadmap for the journey.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he also mentions this Human Masters Club on the other side. Is he talking about an actual place, like a physical location?
It sounds more like a state of being, like a realm of consciousness that's accessible to those who have awakened to their mastery.
Interesting. So less about dying and going somewhere else, and more about a shift in perception that happens while we're still here.
That seems to be the gist of it, yeah. And he even ties this concept of mastery to his views on transhumanism, which are, as you can imagine, quite a bit different from the typical technological focus.
Right, because for him, it's not about merging with machines or anything like that. It's about merging with our own master selves.
Exactly. He emphasizes the freedom of the I am. He's suggesting that true transhumanism is about the integration of the human and the master, not about augmenting our bodies with technology. He actually sees this as the next step in human evolution.
Wow. And he even challenges this whole popular idea of oneness that's so prevalent in a lot of spiritual circles. Why is that?
He believes the traditional interpretation of oneness can actually be kind of disempowering. It's not that he's advocating for separation, but a different kind of unity where all parts of the self are integrated, but without losing that individual sovereignty.
So not just dissolving into some kind of cosmic soup.
Exactly. It's like we're all unique facets on a multifaceted jewel. We're whole and complete on our own, yet still part of something larger.
I love that analogy. So it's not about becoming homogenous. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness while still honoring our unique expression.
Beautifully said.
And speaking of unique expressions, this is where his concept of the alt-reality comes in.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
This one really intrigued me because he makes it sound like there's literally a whole other reality that exists alongside our own, and we can actually choose to access it. How does that work?
It's one of his more mind-bending ideas, for sure, but he talks about this alt button within each of us. It's obviously a metaphor, but he's talking about this metaphorical switch that allows us to shift our perception and experience this different reality.
So it's not about physically going anywhere. It's about a fundamental shift in how we're perceiving things.
Exactly. He says it's not about escaping this reality, but expanding our awareness to include other possibilities, other ways of experiencing what we call real.
Which connects back to his whole point about consciousness being the fundamental force, right?
Yeah.
If consciousness creates reality, then shifting our consciousness would also shift our experience of what's real.
Precisely. And he claims this shift in perception isn't just about personal transformation. He says it can actually have ripple effects that go beyond just us.
He even suggests it can impact people who've already passed on, right? Like that's a whole other level.
It's a really interesting idea. He talks about how people can get stuck in their stories even after death, and that our own expanded consciousness can actually help to create a more freeing reality for them as well. It's like we become conduits for a more expanded way of being, impacting not just our own lives, but the entire fabric of reality.
Okay, now that is a powerful thought, and it kind of makes you wonder, if we really do have this much influence, what are we choosing to create with our consciousness, both individually and collectively?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that Adamus keeps circling back to throughout these talks. He's constantly challenging his listeners to question their assumptions, to step outside their comfort zones, and to really embrace the full potential of their I am consciousness.
So not just understanding these concepts intellectually, but really embodying them. It's like he's saying, don't just think about it, live it.
Exactly. He even goes so far as to say that the mind has reached its limit, that we're entering a new era where intuition, feeling, and direct knowing will become way more important than just mental analysis.
He calls it the end of the era of the mind, right? Which is kind of ironic considering how much he talks.
He does love to talk, but I think his point is that we've become so reliant on the mind that we've lost touch with that deeper knowing, our intuition, our heart-centered wisdom.
It's like we've become disconnected from our own internal guidance system.
Exactly. And he's encouraging us to reconnect with that inner wisdom, to trust our intuition, and to allow ourselves to be guided by something beyond just the limitations of the thinking mind.
Which is a pretty scary thought for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Letting go of that control, trusting in something you can't see or fully understand. It can feel like jumping off a cliff without knowing if there's a net to catch you.
Absolutely. He acknowledges that fear, but he also emphasizes that we're not alone in this. He keeps referring to his listeners as family, suggesting that there's this sense of community, of shared experience that can help us navigate these uncertain times.
It's like finding your tribe. Those people who get it, who are on a similar wavelength.
Exactly. And he also stresses that there's no one right way to do this. Each person's journey is unique, and what matters most is that we're following our own inner guidance, our own individual path.
He even tells us this hilarious story about the Pope walking in on him sitting naked by the fire.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
And the Pope doesn't even bat an eyelid. It's like he's saying, don't worry about what other people think, just be yourself.
He definitely has a way of using humor to make a point. And I think that's a big part of what makes his message so appealing. He's not afraid to be unconventional, to push boundaries, to challenge the status quo. But underneath it all, there's this deep sense of love, compassion, and a genuine desire to help people awaken to their full potential.
So it's not about blindly following his teachings, but more about using them as a catalyst for our own self-discovery.
Exactly. He's not offering a dogma or a set of rules to follow, but rather a new way of seeing ourselves, the world, and the nature of reality itself. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's not about finding all the answers, but about asking the right questions. The kind of questions that can shift our whole perspective and open us up to a whole new realm of possibility.
It's like he's giving us permission to question, like, everything, even the things that seem so fundamental to how we experience life.
And not even just permission, but encouragement, you know? He seems to really get a kick out of turning things upside down, inside out, making you really look at everything with fresh eyes. And it's refreshing, even if it can be a bit much sometimes.
And totally. Like when he talks about how our expanded consciousness can actually impact people who've already passed on.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you rethink everything we think we know about life, death, what might be beyond.
Absolutely. It's like he's saying that by tapping into this I am consciousness, we're not just, evolving individually. We're actually influencing the evolution of consciousness itself, which is a huge concept.
It's huge. And it makes me think about how often we get caught up in trying to achieve some perfect state of enlightenment.
Mhm.
But Adamus almost seems to be saying that's not the point. It's more about embracing the messiness of being human,
Yeah.
with all the contradictions, all the imperfections.
Yeah, he's all about allowing the process to unfold naturally. He even jokes, he's like, yeah, sometimes I throw in a little drama, just to keep things interesting.
Oh, he's definitely got a playful side.
Totally. It's like he's saying, lighten up, enjoy the ride,
Yeah.
don't take it all so seriously.
Right, right. It's supposed to be fun, too.
Exactly.
And he's adamant that we already have everything we need within us to navigate this whole crazy journey. Like, remember that cheat sheet he talks about?
Oh, yes. He's constantly reminding people, trust your own inner knowing, trust your intuition, because all the answers, they're already there. It's not about seeking knowledge outside of ourselves. It's about remembering what we already know at the deepest level.
Which brings us back to that core message of self-acceptance. And not just understanding it intellectually, but actually embodying it,
Yeah.
really living it.
Living it, yeah. He talks about letting go of judgment, just being present with whatever arises without trying to fix it or change it. And he describes this state of being where energy is no longer forceful, but graceful, where peace and ease replace that constant mental struggle. It's beautiful.
It's like he's painting this picture of what this new era of consciousness could look and feel like. He even describes these energy scents that become more and more perceptible as our awareness expands.
It's fascinating, right? Because he's implying that as we're shifting our perception, we're literally changing our energetic makeup. And we can actually sense that change. It's not just some abstract concept anymore, it's something we can experience with our senses.
It's wild. So for anyone listening who might be feeling, I don't know, a little overwhelmed right now, like their own personal new physics experiment just exploded in their living room, in there, what would Adamus say to them? To the people who are feeling lost, confused, maybe even a little afraid of this whole transformation process?
Well, he's very direct about the challenges. He acknowledges that the body can go through some pretty intense changes, that the mind might feel scattered, that old patterns are going to be challenged. But he reassures everyone, this is all part of the process. It's a necessary dismantling before things can, reassemble in this new way.
Kind of like that braces analogy. Uncomfortable in the moment, but the end result is worth it.
Exactly. And he really stresses the importance of finding support during this time. Connecting with like-minded individuals, people who understand what you're going through. Remember how he keeps calling his listeners family? It's about finding your tribe, those people who get it.
Yeah, your people. And remembering that everyone's experience is going to be unique. There's no right or wrong way to go through this process as long as you're following your own inner guidance. It's about trusting your own path, even if it looks different from everyone else's.
He's all about personal empowerment, owning your experience, even when it's messy and confusing. And he encourages everyone to step out of those limitations, those old beliefs, and embrace the freedom and the possibility that come with recognizing their true nature as conscious creators. It's pretty inspiring.
It is, and I think that is the perfect place to leave this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from iPhones to energy sense, dark holes to new physics. But ultimately what Adamus offers isn't so much a set of answers, but a new way of asking questions about ourselves, about the nature of reality, really the big stuff.
He's a provocateur. He's a storyteller. And whether you agree with everything he says or not, he definitely leaves you thinking, questioning, and maybe even seeing the world a little bit differently.
And that's what we love to do here. It's not about telling you what to think. It's about expanding your perspective, sparking your own curiosity. And, hey, who knows? Maybe it'll even inspire you to discover your own alt reality. So until next time, keep exploring. Hey there, and welcome to your personal deep dive.
Okay.
Today we're exploring the energy that fuels your life,
Right.
shapes your reality,
Yeah.
your own personal energy. We're diving deep into excerpts from a series of insightful talks.
Okay.
They're kind of a blend of spiritual exploration and self-discovery,
Oh, hey.
all delivered with a really refreshing dose of humor.
I like it.
So get ready to unlock that inner wisdom.
I'm ready.
The first takeaway that really struck me from these talks
Yeah.
was this idea that we need to forget struggling with energy.
Okay.
Like it's something that we lack, It's actually our birthright.
Interesting.
It's always flowing our way.
Okay.
Whether it's abundance or peace or even our interactions with other people, it's all energy.
Yeah.
And it's all ours for the taking.
I like how that sounds.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a total shifting perspective.
It is.
Instead of viewing energy as something that we lack.
Right.
Or something that we need to chase after. We can start to see it as something that's inherently ours. And the reason we might not be experiencing this fully is because of our own outdated beliefs and perceptions.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
So how do we actually clear those blockages?
Right.
Well, they talk about this idea of an inner trinity.
Okay.
Which is made up of the I am, the master, and the human.
I'm intrigued, but I'm also a little confused.
Right. It sounds kind of intriguing, but also a little confusing.
A little bit, yeah.
So think of it this way.
Yeah.
The I am is your core essence.
Okay.
It's that pure, joyful energy that simply exists. It's who you are at the deepest level. The master is the wise part of you that holds all of your experiences, your knowledge, your insights. And the human is that part of you that's navigating this earthly journey with all of its ups and downs.
Right, of course, yeah.
So it's not about denying our humanness, but it's about integrating it with these other really powerful aspects of ourselves.
I see.
And that's where they say the true power comes from. Getting this inner trio in sync.
Interesting.
They also mention these mirrors of the master. Which really sparked my curiosity.
Yeah, what are those all about?
So imagine a diamond. With its many facets. Each reflecting light in a unique way. These facets represent the different ways that we perceive reality.
Interesting.
The different mirrors that our master uses to experience the world.
Okay, I can picture that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's so significant about these mirrors?
Yeah.
Well, here's the key. The master doesn't need these mirrors. It chooses them.
Wow.
This means we have the power to choose how we see the world. How we reflect our reality.
So we're not just passive observers.
Exactly.
We're actively participating. And creating.
We're active participants in creating our own experiences.
I like that.
And that brings us to a crucial point that these talks emphasize over and over again. Which is the importance of letting go of guilt and shame.
Right. That's a big one.
Yeah. So many of us carry around all this. You know, these heavy emotions from the past.
Absolutely.
And the excerpts make a bold statement here. They call guilt and shame self-indulgent human distortions. It's not about denying our past mistakes. But it's about recognizing that holding on to those emotions is only keeping us stuck in that old, stagnant energy.
It's time to lighten the load.
Yeah, it's like those baggage fees at the airport.
Totally.
They weigh you down.
Yeah.
And they cost extra in the long run.
And you don't need that extra stuff.
So how do we ditch those emotional baggage fees?
Right.
Well, they talk about this concept of allowing.
Okay.
Is that the key?
Allowing.
Yeah. Allowing is less about doing and more about being. It's about quieting that inner critic. Releasing the need to control. And opening ourselves up to possibilities beyond our wildest imaginations.
I like that.
So how do we get to that state of allowing?
Yeah.
Is there a magic formula?
Right.
Well, they offer a potent image.
Okay.
Dragon energy.
Ooh, I like that.
Think about a dragon's fiery breath.
Okay.
It can clear out those old stagnant energies and limiting beliefs that are keeping us stuck.
So we're tapping into our own inner dragon.
Right.
To clear the path.
Yes.
For allowing.
This is starting to feel pretty powerful.
It is.
And it connects to another key concept.
Okay.
Stepping out of our old ego. And into what these talks call the we-go.
The we-go.
Yeah.
I like that.
So it's not about eliminating the ego entirely.
Right.
But it's about evolving it.
Okay.
The we-go integrates your I am, your master, and your human, into a more complete and empowered sense of self.
So it's about co-creation.
Exactly. It's about co-creation at its finest.
At its finest.
So with this we-go in charge, we're not just passively waiting for good things to happen.
Yeah.
We're actively co-creating them with the universe.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
But how do we actually live from that place of co-creation?
Right.
Do we just sit around meditating
Yeah.
and hoping for the best?
Well, that's where the idea of mission comes in.
Ooh, I love that term.
It's a mission.
Okay.
Fueled by passion.
So it's not just about what we're passionate about.
Right.
But it's about what we're meant to do with that passion.
Exactly.
Okay.
What makes you want to jump out of bed each morning?
Mm-hmm.
What unique gifts do you have to share with the world?
Right.
Whether it's writing a book or starting a business or simply bringing more joy to your everyday interactions.
Right.
That's your passion calling.
I love that. Again, starting to see how all of these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
How we can shift from, feeling powerless in our lives
Right.
to becoming conscious creators of our own reality. It's about recognizing that truth, that your truth already exists.
Yeah.
You don't have to search for it outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's been there all along,
Yeah.
patiently waiting for you to simply know it.
I like that.
It's so easy to get caught up
Yeah.
in looking for answers,
Right.
looking for validation from
Yeah.
all these outside sources, when really the wisdom lies within.
Absolutely.
They also talk about dignity.
Okay.
And it's not just about good manners or anything like that,
Right.
but something much deeper.
Okay.
They describe dignity as this deep self-respect, a recognition of your inherent worthiness.
Right.
It's not about arrogance,
Yeah.
but it's about owning your power and your value
Yeah.
as a divine being.
Okay.
It's like, hey, universe,
Yeah.
I'm showing up as my best self,
Right.
and I expect to be treated accordingly.
Exactly. And when you embody that energy of dignity,
Right.
the universe responds in kind.
Okay.
It influences how other people perceive you, the opportunities that come your way, and even how energy itself interacts with you.
So energy is this abundant force that's always available to us,
Yes.
and it responds to our level of self-worth.
Okay.
But, they keep emphasizing this point
Yeah.
that it's all our energy, even the stuff that we don't like.
Right.
So how do we wrap our heads around that?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
These excerpts really challenge us
Okay.
to see that everything in our experience is a reflection of our own energy.
Okay.
That annoying coworker, that frustrating traffic jam.
Yeah.
It's not happening to you.
Yeah.
It's happening as a reflection of your own internal state.
Oh, I can already feel some resistance coming up for me.
Really?
It's easy to take credit for the good stuff,
Sure.
but taking responsibility for the not so good stuff,
Right.
that's a whole other level.
It's a radical concept,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly empowering
Okay.
once you start to see it in action.
So if I'm understanding this correctly,
Yeah.
if I'm constantly complaining about lack of money, for example, I'm actually perpetuating that lack in my reality.
That's the idea.
Okay.
By focusing on the lack,
Right.
you're aligning your energy with it.
Okay.
You're making it more likely to show up in your experience.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do we actually shift that?
Okay, so they offer this simple but powerful practice.
Okay.
Next time you find yourself saying, I don't know,
Yeah.
try replacing it with the answer is yet to be realized.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're shifting from a place of uncertainty and limitation
Right?
to a place of openness and possibility.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a subtle shift in language,
Yeah.
but it can have a profound impact on your energy.
Okay.
It's like you're sending a message to the universe.
Right.
That you're open to receiving new solutions, new ideas, new possibilities.
Okay, so they also talk about this idea of a global reset
Right.
happening on the planet.
Okay.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
And how does it relate to our personal energy?
Well, it's a fascinating concept.
Okay.
They suggest that we're in the midst of a collective shift
Okay.
in consciousness, a time of great upheaval and transformation.
So as the world is transforming,
Yes.
so are we.
Precisely.
And this time of change
Yeah.
can be really challenging.
Right.
But it's also an incredible opportunity
Absolutely.
for growth and evolution.
It is.
They compare it to the metamorphosis of a caterpillar.
Oh, yeah.
There's that caterpillar analogy
All
again.
right.
I'm starting to see why they keep coming back to it.
Just like the caterpillar.
Okay.
We may feel like we're falling apart,
You know.
dissolving into this messy, chaotic soup.
Hmm.
But hidden within that chaos
Yeah.
are the seeds of our transformation,
Right.
the potential for something new and beautiful to emerge.
So if we can ride the wave of change, trust the process,
Yeah.
we'll come out the other side transformed, just
Yeah.
like the butterfly.
Exactly.
Easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah. Right. How do we actually navigate these intense energies of change and transformation?
Right.
Well, the excerpts suggest a surprising approach.
Uh-huh.
Embrace the unknown.
Even when it feels scary.
Yes, even when it feels scary, because our natural instinct
Right.
is to cling to what's familiar,
Of course.
right? To seek security and control,
Yeah. But true freedom,
right?
True growth lies beyond our comfort zones.
It does.
When we can loosen our grip on the known and step into the unknown,
Yes.
that's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens.
It's about trusting that even when we can't see the path ahead, the universe is guiding us,
Right.
supporting us every step of the way.
Yeah, and the excerpts emphasize this point
Okay.
that we're not alone in this journey.
Okay.
They talk about these beings called Merlins.
Merlins.
Yes.
Like the wizard.
We'll think of it more metaphorically.
Okay.
The Merlin represents the potential
Okay.
that lies within each of us,
Uh-huh.
the ability to tap into our own innate power.
And create the reality that we desire.
So we all have a little Merlin inside of us,
We do.
just waiting to be unleashed.
Yes.
That's a pretty empowering thought.
It is.
But they also talk about this Order of the Ark,
Right.
which sounds kind of mysterious.
It's a fascinating concept.
Okay.
Imagine a council of celestial beings, billions of them,
Okay.
coming together to address a cosmic challenge,
Okay.
the slowing down of energy.
A cosmic energy crisis.
Exactly,
Okay.
and all of creation.
And what does that even mean?
Well, they don't go into a lot of detail in these excerpts,
Okay.
but they suggest that it was this challenge
Okay.
that led to the creation of Earth,
Interesting.
this grand experiment in consciousness,
Okay.
a way to re-energize the universe.
So we're all part of this grand experiment.
We are.
That's a pretty big responsibility to carry around.
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
It means that we have this vital role to play
Okay.
in the evolution of consciousness.
Not just for ourselves,
Right.
but for the entire cosmos.
Wow, that's a lot to process.
It is, and it ties into this idea
Okay.
that we're not just physical beings having a human experience,
Okay.
but we are actually spiritual beings having a human experience.
I love that distinction.
Right.
It reminds us that there's so much more to us than meets the eye,
Absolutely.
that we're connected to something so much larger than ourselves.
Yes, and as we awaken to that truth,
Mhm.
as we step into our power
Right.
as conscious creators,
Yeah.
we start to see the world and ourselves in
Yeah.
a whole new light.
So if we're all, part of this grand experiment,
Right.
if we all have this incredible potential within us,
Yeah.
what's the next step? How do we actually access that?
Okay.
Yeah. That Merlin magic, that power to shape reality.
Well, the excerpts highlight a key point.
Okay.
It's not about learning some new tricks or techniques. It's about remembering who we truly are. We've spent lifetimes searching for these answers outside of ourselves,
Right?
but the real transformation happens within.
It's like that saying,
Yeah.
you are the answer to the question you've been asking.
Exactly.
And as we remember who we are,
Mm-hmm.
these powerful, creative, divine beings,
Right.
that's when the magic starts to unfold naturally.
Absolutely.
It's not about efforting or forcing,
Yeah.
but it's about aligning with the flow
Right.
of who we truly are.
It's about being who you are.
Now, they also mentioned this disbanding of these angelic families.
Okay.
Sounds like a dramatic breakup.
It does.
What's the significance of that?
Well, it represents a profound shift
Okay.
in cosmic dynamics.
Okay.
These angelic families with their specific roles and their structures, they played a crucial part
Okay.
in the creation of Earth and the evolution of consciousness.
Mhm.
But now the energy is shifting.
Okay.
It's time for a new paradigm,
Okay.
one of greater individual sovereignty and empowerment.
So we're graduating from cosmic kindergarten.
You got it.
No more relying on the angelic families to hold our hands.
That's a great way to put it.
It's about stepping into our own power,
Yeah.
our own authority,
And
as creators of our reality.
Yeah, it's exciting, but also a little daunting, right?
Right, because okay, universe,
Yeah.
no pressure,
Right.
but the future of consciousness rests on our shoulders.
That's a big responsibility,
Right.
but it's also an incredible honor.
Yeah.
And the excerpts really emphasize that we're not alone in this.
Okay.
There are countless other beings, both here on Earth and beyond, who are also awakening to their true nature
Okay.
and contributing to this collective shift in consciousness.
It's like we're all in this together,
We are.
co-creating a new reality
Yes.
that's more aligned with love and joy and abundance.
Exactly. And they offer this beautiful vision
Okay.
for those who are ready to embrace this new paradigm,
What's that?
new Earths.
New Earths,
Yeah.
as in multiple planets.
We'll think of it more
Okay.
as new realms of experience,
Okay.
new frequencies of consciousness
Okay.
that are becoming accessible as we evolve.
Okay.
They're not like physical places in
Oh,
the
yeah.
traditional sense,
Okay.
but they are states of being,
Mhm.
realms of higher consciousness.
So as we raise our own vibration,
Yes.
as we step into our power as conscious creators,
Yeah.
we open up to these new possibilities.
Precisely. And the excerpts suggest
Okay.
that this is not just some... That's the idea. And it's not just about creating a better world out there.
Yep.
It's about creating a more joyful, fulfilling, and empowered experience for ourselves right here, right now.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a minute. It's
Yeah.
not always easy to stay positive
Sure.
and empowered, especially when life throws those curveballs our way.
Right.
So how do we stay connected to our truth,
Mhm.
to that inner Merlin
Right.
when things get tough?
Well, the excerpts offer a practical tool for that.
Okay.
Develop a trigger.
A trigger.
Yeah, a word, a phrase, a physical gesture,
Okay.
even a specific song
Mhm.
that reminds you to come back to center,
Okay.
to reconnect with your inner wisdom and power.
So like a mental reset button.
Exactly. And the more you use it, the
Uh,
more automatic it becomes.
yeah.
You can literally train your mind and body
Mhm.
to return to a state of peace,
Mhm.
clarity, and empowerment,
Okay.
no matter what's happening around you.
They also keep emphasizing this idea of befriending our energy.
Right, because so many of us
Yeah.
have this unconscious adversarial relationship with energy.
In what way?
We're constantly trying to control it
Okay.
or manipulate it or even resist it.
Okay.
And the excerpts suggest a more graceful approach.
Which is
Surrender.
surrender.
Yeah.
So it's not about giving up or becoming passive.
Not at all. It's
Nice.
about aligning with the flow,
Mm.
trusting the wisdom of the universe,
Okay.
and allowing energy to work through us
Right.
rather than against us.
Instead of trying to swim upstream,
Exactly.
we're learning to ride the waves.
Beautifully put.
And then they introduce this idea of the point of magic.
Okay.
These moments in our lives when we're faced with a choice
Mm.
to either contract in fear
Right.
or expand into possibility.
Those fork in the road moments
Oh,
where you can either let your fear dictate your choices
yeah.
or choose a more empowered response.
And by choosing to open up to the energy of the situation
Yes.
rather than shutting down,
Right.
we're essentially choosing to step into our power.
Precisely.
It's in those moments of choice
Yeah.
that we truly become conscious creators of our reality.
We do.
This has been an incredible deep dive,
It has.
filled with so many thought-provoking ideas and practical tools.
A lot to think about.
What really struck me was this idea that,
Yeah.
true empowerment comes
Yeah.
not from seeking answers outside of ourselves,
Right.
but from remembering who we truly are.
Absolutely.
It's about tapping into that inner wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
that Merlin magic that's always been available to us.
I agree.
What resonated most with you?
Well, I think the idea of new Earths is incredibly hopeful.
Okay.
It reminds us that even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty, something beautiful and transformative is emerging.
Right.
It's a call to really step into our power as conscious creators
Yeah.
and to contribute to the creation of a more joyful, abundant, and fulfilling reality.
Beautifully said. And on that inspiring note,
Okay.
we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
Remember, you are a powerful creator,
Yes, you are.
a Merlin in the making.
You got it.
Go out there and shape your reality
That's right.
with intention, joy,
Yes.
and a healthy dose of that dragon energy.
I love it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep expanding,
Absolutely.
and keep shining your light.
Welcome in, everyone. Ready to dive into something a little different. We're exploring the teachings of this guide, Adamus, and honestly, he's unlike anyone we've covered. He speaks to those he calls Shaumbra, people on a path of awakening. Ever feel like you're not quite from around here? Like there's got to be something more?
You're tapping into something many are feeling, especially now. It's like clockwork throughout history. Big upheavals hit, and boom, people start searching for deeper meaning. Adamus speaks to that, but his insights, they resonate way beyond any one tradition.
What gets me is how direct Adamus is, like straight to the point. His big message. You, my friend, are the master, here to shine, especially now when things seem a bit wobbly on a global scale. He even talks about the apocalypse, but not the doom and gloom version.
Right. Forget fire and brimstone. Adamus says it's revealing. Time to shed what's no longer serving us, old patterns, beliefs, even identities we've clung to. He calls it the Shaumbra curse, this habit of overgiving, compromising, battling against our own becoming.
So easy to get stuck in that, right? But then Adamus throws in these hilarious stories like, did you hear the one about him missing human coffee, even at the Ascended Masters Club? Turns out they actually have one.
Classic Adamus, always the playful one.
Yeah.
But his humor, it's intentional. He's shaking up how we think spirituality has to be. You can be deeply spiritual, he says, and still appreciate life's absurdities. Even curse a little.
Exactly. Keeps it real. And speaking of keeping it real, Adamus talks about this thing he calls receiving. Not just material stuff, but receiving light, abundance, our own mastery. He says it's a total shift from how we're conditioned.
It's huge. We're wired to do, strive, achieve. But what if true power was in allowing ourselves to receive? To receive the abundance that's already there, to receive the wisdom we already possess.
That hits home. We're so busy trying to control everything, we forget to just be open to what's being offered.
And that, my friend, is the Shaumbra curse in action. He even tells this story about Carrie, someone very close to him who struggled with receiving. Couldn't understand why it felt so difficult, even when good things were right there.
Makes you wonder, why is it so hard for us to receive? Why block the good stuff, too?
It's multi-layered, right? Society conditions us strive, earn, prove yourself. Then there's past experiences. Those times we felt a lack of love, support, abundance.
Like those experiences form a belief that we don't deserve good things, even when they show up.
Exactly. And then there's fear. Fear of change, of our own power. Because if we fully received, stepped into our magnificence, who knows what we'd become? That could be scary.
And that's where Adamus's teachings are so potent. He's not just pointing out problems, he's offering a way out. A way to break free from that Shaumbra curse and step into a reality of our own making.
A reality where receiving isn't just possible, it's our natural state.
And being the master isn't about power over others, but mastering our own energy, our own reality.
Which leads us to another fascinating bit. Realm workers. Adamus describes them as having a special role in this current shift we're in. Often, they've walked a lonelier path, made sacrifices to help create the energy we're feeling now.
That's resonating with me. Many of you listening, you've felt that pull, that sense of being different, of being here to make a difference.
And you are making a difference, even if it's not always obvious. Adamus says this work, this awakening, it requires a different kind of energy exchange. Not always about accolades, but about the satisfaction of playing your part in something much, much bigger.
It's about answering that soul call, even when it leads us to uncharted territory.
Speaking of uncharted, Adamus hints at some pretty wild things on the horizon. He mentions Gaia, the Earth, going through her own transformation. Even suggests she might be on her way out and that her final message to humanity, well, it'll be even more direct than his.
Wow, that's a statement. Makes you think about what's really shifting right now, both inside us and on a planetary level.
Right. These are extraordinary times. As we navigate these changes, it's key to remember what looks like chaos might actually be transformation unfolding.
Transformation towards a new way of being, a new experience of love, a new reality waiting to be born. And speaking of love, Adamus has this concept he calls Love 2.0, and it flips everything we thought we knew about love on its head.
Love 2.0, it's not just romance. It's a fundamental shift in how love operates on a planetary level. He even says this new love, it's about receiving, not just giving. That's huge.
It is huge. He's turning the whole concept upside down, challenging us to rethink everything.
Exactly. He's saying step out of the old ways, that love is a transaction. Love is our natural state, a force that flows through us when we allow it.
And that is a powerful concept to sit with, especially looking at the world today. What if the key to healing, to creating a more loving world, was in our ability to receive love, to receive the abundance of love that's already here?
That is a profound question, and one we'll keep exploring as we go deeper into the teachings of Adamus.
So we're talking about a pretty big shift, right? Going from chasing love to letting it in. But what's that actually look like day to day? How do we live that?
$1 million question, right? It's easy to get the concepts, but to really embody them, that's where the magic happens. Adamus would say, got to step out of the mind, that not enough chatter, and get into the body, into feeling.
So not affirmations, not positive thinking, but a deeper shift in our awareness, our whole way of being.
You got it. It's about tuning into our own energy, those subtle nudges from the soul. Adamus calls it neurotunitis. Like our senses are getting an upgrade, becoming aware of realms we didn't even know were there.
Neurotunitis, I like that. We're rewiring ourselves for a whole new frequency. But if we're getting more sensitive, more open, how do we deal with a world that's already kind of overwhelming?
That's where allowing comes in. Not giving up, but actively surrendering to how things unfold. Letting go of needing to control everything, have all the answers, trusting that even in the chaos, there's an intelligence, a guidance leading us towards what's best.
It's like we're learning to dance with life, instead of trying to choreograph every single step. But what about those moments when we stumble? When that doubt creeps in, like, what if this receiving thing is a load of?
Adamus will probably chuckle and say, welcome to being human. Doubt, it's part of the journey. That inner critic, that's just fear trying to keep us small and safe, but ultimately stuck.
So how do we quiet that critic, that voice of doubt? How do we build up the trust, the faith, to truly believe we are capable of this mastery?
It's not about silencing it, but befriending it. Acknowledge it, that fear, but don't let it run the show. Adamus would say it's about perspective. That inner critic, it's not the enemy, just a part of us that wants love, acceptance to be whole.
That changes things. We're not at war with our doubts, but seeing them as parts of ourselves that are hurting and need that love, that acceptance that we're learning to receive.
Exactly. Yeah. And by extending that compassion to every part of ourselves, something amazing happens. We open up to a new way of being, one that's rooted in self-love, worthiness, knowing we're inherently deserving of all the good stuff life has to offer.
And that brings us right back to Love 2.0, that radical shift from giving to receiving, from searching for love outside ourselves to recognizing it's already within.
It's huge. Adamus believes this is key to humanity evolving. He says Love 2.0 is about sovereignty, about knowing our own divinity, not needing someone else to complete us, but coming together from wholeness, self-love, mutual respect.
So not ditching relationships, but approaching them with more awareness, more empowerment.
Yes, it's realizing that love isn't something outside of us, but something that flows through us, as us. It's about becoming a source of love, not just for ourselves, but for everything around us.
That's a powerful image. Imagine a world where we're not chasing love, but where it's the foundation for our lives, our relationships, everything.
A world where love is more than a feeling, but a force, an energy capable of healing, uniting, and creating lasting change.
It's a beautiful vision, inspiring, but maybe a little daunting too. So for someone wanting to live this Love 2.0, to unlock that inner master, where do we even start?
Adamus would say it starts with a simple realization. You are already love, already whole and complete.
It's not about becoming someone new, but remembering who we are at our core.
Exactly. It's about peeling back those layers of conditioning that tell us we're not enough, that we have to earn love. It's about coming home to ourselves, to the truth. We are divine beings, capable of experiencing and expressing love in its purest form.
And that's a journey worth taking.
Without a doubt, it's the journey of a lifetime. Awakening to our true nature, unlocking the infinite potential within each of us.
So it's about remembering who we truly are, beings of love, capable of experiencing and expressing that love in its purest form. Beautiful concept. But I bet some folks are thinking, okay, sounds great, but how do I actually do that? How do I tap into that love?
The million-dollar question, right? We can understand these ideas, but how do we live them? How do they become real in our everyday lives? Adamus's answer is deceptively simple. By allowing that love in, allowing ourselves to express it freely, no strings attached.
Allowing. It's a recurring theme. And it feels kind of backwards in a world that's all about hustle and forcing things to happen.
Exactly. And boom, there's that Shaumbra curse again, overthinking, overanalyzing, blocking ourselves from receiving. Adamus is clear. We don't have to earn love. We don't have to prove we're worthy. Just allow it to flow.
It sounds simpler than it feels, right? Especially for those of us used to being in control, figuring things out with our minds.
Absolutely. But what if true mastery wasn't about control? What if it was about surrender? Not giving up, but actively choosing to let go, to trust that there's something bigger guiding us, even when we can't see the whole picture.
Powerful. But it takes a leap of faith, trusting in what we can't see.
It does. But Adamus would say that trust comes from our own experiences, from knowing deep down we're not alone on this path. He talks about the support that's available, not just from him, but from the Ascended Masters, from our own souls, from the very fabric of existence itself.
So we've got a whole cheering section, seen and unseen, rooting for us every step of the way.
You got it. We're never truly alone, even when it feels that way. And when we open ourselves up to that support, when we allow ourselves to receive it, something incredible happens. We tap into this wellspring of love, of wisdom that's always been within us, just waiting to be unleashed.
I love that image. It makes me think about the practical side of all this. If we're serious about this new love, unlocking that inner master, what are some actual steps we can take?
Adamus keeps it simple. Choose to believe you are worthy. Choose love in every moment. Show up as the magnificent being you already are.
So it's not about reaching some distant enlightenment, but making choices right now that line up with our best selves, with the love that's at our core.
Nailed it. Bring that awareness, that love, that light into everything you do. Your relationships, your work, your creativity, how you interact with the world.
Living our truth, sharing our gifts, shining brightly, even when it feels a little scary.
And that's where the humor comes back in. Don't take yourself too seriously. Find the joy, laugh at your stumbles and fears.
Because at the end of the day, it's all part of the dance, this incredible journey of the soul. And laughter, just like love, can be a powerful force for change.
Absolutely. As we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Adamus, let's remember, you are the master, the creator of your own reality. You are love, here to shine your unique light.
And the world needs that light. So go out there, embrace your mastery, and let love guide you. It's been incredible exploring all this with you. Until next time, remember to allow, to receive, to shine brightly. You are loved more than you can possibly imagine.